John Jones.
John Jones.
John Jones. John Jones is the greatest of all time. He's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. John Jones is the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. Did I mention to you guys that John Jones is the greatest of all time?
At this point, Dana White needs to be stopped. I don't know who Dana's boss is or if Dana White even has a boss, but at this point, this is kind of going too far. You know, I think we're all kind of regretting saying that we missed the Dana White of old when he used to go on rants like the crazy rant against Oscar de la Hoya, the crazy rant on Steve Mazzagatti, the one on Mario Yamasaki. You know, we were all saying how we love and we miss this Dana White, but now this Dana White has been laid dormant for years on years on years, and he's starting to come back, but this time it's in a way that is starting to get annoying at this point. And it's the fact that he's just constantly calling John Jones the greatest of all time and the pound for pound number one, the fighter. We get it, all right? You think John Jones is pound for pound number one. You know, as the kids say, now he's been glazing John Jones, which, by the way, what the hell does glazing even mean? I feel like ever since I graduated from school, I don't ever hear these new terms and new words anymore. So when they come out, I'm like, what the hell does this even mean?
Stop riding Jones. Shut the fuck up. Look at the stats, read them. Best of all time, and he is the pound for pound best fighter in the world. Ride that, motherfucker.
But man, it's almost like as if anyone has a differing opinion, he goes absolutely ballistic. And he's not only arguing and screaming at the media talking about John Jones, but he's also replying to damn near every single comment on Instagram about this guy. He's also tagging John Jones and stuff nonstop, and even goes as far as the insulting you if you question his beliefs. At this point, I think it's getting a little bit out of hand, because if you think about it, people define greatness differently. I mean, Dana White has made it clear that he's saying John Jones is the greatest and he's the pound for pound number one because numbers don't lie. I've shared my own thoughts on pound for pound number one. I personally think Islam Makhachev and Alex Pereira are above John Jones in the pound for pound rankings currently because, in my eyes, activity does matter. Regardless whether it's due to an injury, whether due to this, whether due to going to jail, whatever. In my opinion, pound for pound rankings matter with your activity. It matters who's the pound for pound number one fighter right now. And John Jones hasn't fought in a very, very long time, whereas all these other fighters have been extremely active. So in my opinion, the pound for pound ranking changes over time, and John Jones is just at my number 3 spot, which honestly should be pretty high considering his inactivity. And as for the greatest of all time conversation, I could even see him possibly not even being considered the greatest of all time anymore. And that's simply because I determine greatness as more than just on paper what you've done, who you've beaten, the names you've beaten. When you're talking about greatness and the greatest of all time, it also factors in the things you've done outside of the ring, your impact on society, and your influence on the people who love to watch the sport that you compete in. And it can be safe to say that even John Jones may have the best resume when it comes to being inside the octagon. It's also safe to say that he probably has the worst resume when it comes to things outside of the octagon. And in my opinion, factoring that in, I think that lowers him on the greatest of all time rankings. Some people might agree, some people might disagree, some people think, look, it's only a matter of numbers and stats, and that is it. And that's cool and that's fine. And that will for sure make John Jones the greatest of all time because let's be real, I don't think anyone ever is going to come close to the type of resume that he has and have as big of names on their resume as he has. But I just think that the outside stuff should really matter when you're talking about the greatest of all time, which is why I think Muhammad Ali is so considered as one of the greatest of all times by so many people. It's not because of only what he did inside the ring, but it's also because of the stuff that he did outside of it, the type of impact he had on the people. But that's my say in the matter. I think Dana White's taking this stuff a little bit too far. It's really not that serious. It's really just a matter of opinion and how would you rank this type of stuff. But one last thing before I head out, Dana White actually names his UFC Mount Rushmore. I want to take a look at it and see and maybe question it a little bit and see what things I might change about it. Of course, he starts out putting John Jones first, which is okay. That's fine. John Jones will be on my Mount Rushmore also. He then puts Ronda Rousey next, which I could definitely see. Ronda Rousey's the one that set the tone for the women in the UFC. And people will often forget over time how dominant and how hyped up she really was. She was the real deal. And I think the only argument people could really have is by putting Amanda Nunes up there, which I think Amanda Nunes is probably the greatest women's fighter in MMA history. However, I think I would put Ronda Rousey on the Mount Rushmore because of her impact. Amanda Nunes wasn't selling out arenas and breaking records as a headliner when Ronda Rousey was. Ronda brought in so many different fans. She really was the female version of Conor McGregor, so I'm gonna put her up there also. Georges St. Pierre, in my opinion, is a no-brainer. And now this is the more controversial one, Conor McGregor. It's a little bit iffy, man. Yeah, Conor had a big impact on the business side, and he did accomplish a lot, and it wasn't just him accomplishing what he accomplished, it was how he did it. You know, him being the first simultaneous double champ too, that does give him a little bit of brownie points, but in my opinion, it wasn't long enough. I think there's a fair argument that you could even replace him up there with Khabib Nurmagomedov, because in my opinion, he retired early. But there's no doubt he is by far the most dominant champion we have ever seen. He's hardly ever even lost a round. So whether you have Conor there or Khabib there, I'm fine with that. And I think there should be a fifth one. I mean, I get it. You know, people normally do 4, but I personally would do a fifth one. And I say, you know, depending on how you want to put it, I think it should be either Anderson Silva or Demetrious Johnson. I think both of those guys don't really get the respect that they deserve. Demetrious Johnson, of course, we all know he never got the respect he really deserved. And then Anderson Silva, maybe because he kept fighting a little bit too long, that the more recent crowd that started coming in, the Anderson Silva that they saw was not the Anderson Silva in his prime, and you saw him getting knocked out and finished in fights and not really looking as flashy or as good as he used to. But a prime Anderson Silva deserves to be up there. That's going to be all I got for y'all today. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and feel free to let me know what type of names and who would you put on your UFC Mount Rushmore. And of course, as always, thank you all so much for the support, and I'll catch you in the next video.